So we started. Kia ora and welcome to the Tataurangi Golf Podcast. I am Kahu Tataurangi and sitting right next to me is Philip Tataurangi. No, he's not my grandfather, he's actually my father. But as you can see, for the keen-eye viewers, you might notice that our podcast studio's changed this week to a very modest setup with the backdrop here of the ocean in the Bay of Plenty. But to start with, what we're going to be talking about is a golf course on the opposite coastline, Waikanae Beach.
Yeah, Waikanae. Been working with Chris Judd, the GM down there, for a couple of years now, 3 years, maybe even a bit longer than that. But
Chris Judd, off. Great man though.
He is a good young fella. He's just early in his 40s. He's a young fella.
He's a young fella.
He's PGA professional, and Chris had a long relationship with the club. Started playing junior golf down there. Travelled the world, young family, and was on the board, and then became the general manager there just a little over 12 months ago. And so Chris's initial brief was to improve the practice facilities. He takes a junior program down there, and so he wanted to have a little bit more space to teach the kids, and there's a number of kids out on Tuesdays. And they're scattered all over the show, and
the junior program's pretty strong there at Waikanae.
Well, yeah, I mean he's key behind it, and I think he's got kids from Hayden, his daughter, who's 7, coming up 7, to he's been hitting balls and butting around for a couple of years, to some kids that are playing in their pennant team, and so a vast array of talent and interest and that sort of stuff. But
do you think there's an ironical sort of synergy, this is a little side note, between golf clubs that have good, strong junior programs, be it just, coming and participating and having a good time, to the high performance side? Generally is a golf club in pretty good health as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's all different strokes for different folks, and population has a influence on that. But I think it's a good good representation of the culture of the club if there's investment, not just in the kids that look like they're showing promise. It's that majority, let's face it, the majority of kids that come through a junior program over time are not going to go on to be Ryan Fox, but they are future members, or you just give them the gift of learning how to play and making contact. It's the ride the bike mentality. If you can teach kids how to swing a club early, and some of the etiquette, culture, just the behaviours around a golf club and hanging out with adults in that environment is a gift that they may well take with them and pick the game back up when they have their own kids. Who knows?
Exactly. It's a game that can be played for life too, right? It's a bit cliche, but there's 3 generations that could be playing in the same group, which is pretty cool from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I think that's what the missing part in all of that sometimes can be boards look at the investment in their junior programs as what does it do for our club? The reality is that very few people, if they start as a school kid, are still playing at that club when they're 50. They've moved on to somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And so, and clubs are recipient of that investment, and then they also pay it forward for some other club to have a future member or someone involved in the game. So it's not quite as narrow as if we invest in this kid now,
they're going to be a member for us later on,
or that we're going to be responsible for their career in golf or whatever it is. And so anyway, back to Waikanae.
Circling the wagon.
Circling back to Waikanae. Chris is, he had a keen interest in the kids and trying to have the best facilities within their footprint for being able to teach juniors and for the whole membership to have practice facilities all around. They have a practice fairway there. It's jammed between the first and the ninth hole. 150 metres long, and it sits a bit wet and damp, so it can only be used during the summer months really. And so there wasn't a lot of leeway for the practice facilities, but talked to Chris on the side and to the board and said, hey, look, the golf club here you're ideally located. I mean, the Kapiti Coast is only getting more popular. And, Wellington's moving out that way, and now with Transmission Gully going in, all of those courses out there will benefit from it, not just Paraparaumu. But in digging to their history, they were formed in the late 60s, early 70s, and the formative people that started laying out the golf course had a close connection to Paraparaumu. The former greenkeeper and the head pros started laying out the routing of the course. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I raised that with the board, that actually their routing's really cool. A lot of green sites and tee sites sit on dunes. They had a lot of exotic planting that most golf clubs, have an overabundance of that around their golf courses. But if we could slowly but surely just reveal a little bit more of the landscape, a lot of the holes are sitting there. So we went through a master planning process. What came out of that was they've got Arvida are putting in a retirement village right next door to their ninth hole. Ninth hole's been played with a couple of times throughout the last decade or so, and but it's still a hole that the members weren't happy with. It wasn't playing properly. There was a lot of balls that were not staying within the boundaries of the course, and so with the retirement village going in, it was this unique situation where the club were going through their master plan and the development right on their boundary was going through the master plan as well. So over the last couple of years, we've worked really closely alongside of Arvida to say, hey, we've got a hole here that's not functioning as the golf club would like it to. In reality, the design of the hole probably meant that it needed to either be straightened up or there needed to be greater vision of the quantity of the hole. And if the club were going to entertain not using all of that land, they probably only had one buyer. And that was the Arvida, right? And so, long way went about it that the club have actually sold a little bit of land to Arvida. The two master plans now shake hands with each other. We've got a hole that we're going to get started on here in October that plays further away from the boundary, taking a par 5 ninth and shortening it to a par 4. We're going to use up a little bit of that land that's the practice fairway there, but we're going to improve that land as well. So at different times, I think it'll still be able to hit some balls there. The green complex is going to stay the same. It's benched right into the dune, but we'll improve the turf around it and probably have a look at that front left bunker and see whether that needs some rationalisation. But a new tee complex, there'll be a couple of thousand native plants that go in. We're going to build a couple of wetlands, extend a natural wetland that's there right now. That's connected to the Narara wetland, which is a huge wetland right on the northern boundary of the course. And so I think it's a pretty big move for the club, bold move. They've got a little compensation for the sale of the land. They're going to be able to reinvest that into the course, fix up this ninth hole. We got started with some work on the other side of the course with expanding the 11th fairway and taking that further away from that boundary as well.
So that was a boundary stroke issue, was it? Or?
Yeah, not quite as prevalent probably as the ninth might have been if we're not prepared for this redesign. But nevertheless, it's with the increased play. There's just, if there was one or two balls going over the fence a week a couple of years ago, that was increasing. There's another par 3 there that has got a bit of ball strike going on as well. So it's not that they needed major surgery, but probably just a slight rearranging of the furniture and just a wonderful landscape for golf. So yeah.
So on that, obviously the ninth hole is kind of where the centrepiece of all this sort of began. Does that hole just get adjusted in isolation, or does that have flow-on effects to kind of the other parts of the golf course?
I think the route off of the eighth tee will be a little bit different, coming to the new set of tees. Those tees will connect with the tees for the second, the par 3, and so there'll be a little bit of natural intersection there of the routing. In and of doing all of this, we're going to create a couple of wetlands, dry lakes, drainage areas effectively to dry out the area between the 9th and the 1st. And in the fullness of time, there's a couple of big willows down the right-hand side of the 1st that are probably a health and safety risk, that they're just short-rooted and in the wet profile, and a good wind usually means a couple of limbs go off them each winter, and so those wetlands might take the place of those trees alongside the right hand side of the 1st. And so it's all a little work in progress, but I think incrementally there's already been quite a bit of tree removal. There's been a little bit of irrigation work. There's these works that we did on the 11th hole with a new tee and expanding the fairway, and some tree removal up by the green, which just allows a whole lot more light and drying out of that area, and over time there'll be a little bit more native planting up around that green. So just incrementally there'll be little bits and pieces of improvement around the course, but the routing pretty much stays intact from what they've enjoyed the last 50 years or so.
Cool. And you noticed or mentioned it before, obviously, that there's Paraparaumu just down the road, and another golf course being built just a little bit further up the road. The question I have, I guess, for this, and like you said, that there's this little incremental changes, is kind of what is the brief? What's the goal for Waikanae Beach? There's Paraparaumu, which is regarded really high in this country, and then there's a private golf course that's, another 20 minutes down the road that's going to be trying to rank pretty highly as well.
I think, yeah.
What is their goal? Is their goal to try and get to those levels? Or?
I think first and foremost, their goal has got to be the best version of themselves for their members. That's got to be their first goal. And, when I started working with the club and Chris was on the board there, they had 600 members there or thereabouts. Not a booming golf economy on the Kapiti Coast, but as soon as Transmission Gully opened up, it's cut the travel time from Wellington out to the Kapiti Coast significantly, and there's huge amounts of development that just come with a new motorway wherever that motorway is, right? And so there's a handful of courses on the Kapiti Coast that are all on nice sandy soils. The crown jewel is Paraparaumu, and as you say, Douglas Links is being built right now, so that's going to add a little bit of extra attention to the area. So first and foremost, the vision's got to be, and it is, why can I be the best version of themselves for their members and for those people that want to become and play there? But I think they'll probably pick up a little bit of green fee play over time, just by naturally being in the same neighbourhood as those other courses.
But is it by being the same or being different?
Oh, being the best version of themselves. They're quite different from Paraparaumu. At the same time, you can see they're speaking the same language. They're in a natural dunescape, and yes, they're, despite being a little bit closer to the coast, they're closer to that wetland environment as well. And so that's part of their story, and they went pretty hard with planting a whole heap of pahurakawas back in the day, and although some of them are in the wrong spots, and when I say wrong spots, as they've grown up, they've crowded the corridor, and it's meant that some of these holes that are close to the boundary now don't have as much space to play the hole as safely as they could. So there might be some rationalisation there, but I think whenever you mention tree removal to memberships or boards, they get just a little bit anxious, but the exotic tree removal is the key part down there. They've got some natural dune structure that's beautiful. It's maybe not quite as bold as Paraparaumu, but just super authentic, and it's had macrocarpus and conifers and pines and you name it, whole heap of silver birches and whatever, crowding all of these beautiful dune structures. So slowly but surely it'd be nice to reveal them, taking a little bit away, and some of this work on the 9th is part of that, is just unveiling a little bit more of your DNA rather than trying to recreate it. And I think a lot of golf clubs in New Zealand, you know, they went through a period of time of probably playing a bit of copycat.
Yeah.
You know, just all trying to be a little bit the same. And you know, Paraparaumu fell a bit of a victim to that before your time. But around about when you were born, 2000s.
Yeah, looking back at the old tournament, the Open they had there, it's quite a lot different to the events that I've played there.
Pine plantation there in the middle of the course, and pine trees along the dune ridge between the 3rd and the 17th and 1st and 18th, and you know, through, you know, very cautious and careful but visionary stewardship and under Leo, Leo Barber. Yeah, there's a superintendent there and became the general manager, and you know, the subsequent head greenkeepers and superintendents that they've had since Leo have identified that, hey, the original Paraparaumu was not meant to be that. It wasn't the original vision for the course, and it kind of detoured away from that somehow, and for very good reason. So, you know, the pine plantation, we're going to make all this money off of the pine trees. That's not a new idea. A lot of clubs had that, and it didn't turn out that way. But yeah, just taking the course
pines
back.
were considered a revenue earner. That was why they were planted. Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you know, a lot of courses, you know, got caught up in that Ponzi scheme of plants and pine trees, and hey, everyone was trying their best. And at the time, 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was money in forestry.
Right.
And so a small little plantation, would it generate them a whole heap of dough? But no. But when it came to harvest, 25 to 30 years on, forestry was going through a bit of a lull. And so Waikanae had that same thing. They had a forest of 150 odd trees, 150 to 180 trees in between the 16th and 17th hole, that I got to believe they were planted around the same time as the one down at Paraparaumu.
Right.
You beauty, we'll sell off all those logs, generate us maybe 30, 40, 50 grand. We'll reinvest that back into the course. When it came to harvest, well, no, there wasn't that money in it. And in fact, it wasn't probably going to cost the club some money. And in the case of Waikanae, they couldn't get those logs out of there anyway, because they've got a stream that runs through the middle of the course, and the bridges were not rated for trucks coming in to take it out. So they've taken down that plantation. There's a beautiful big dune ridge there between 16 and 17 now that we'll revegetate that with some native planting, some little clusters of ground cover, and make that a little bit more authentic to the dune that's 150 yards away from the 17th green. And so that's how close they are to the coast. And
is it kind of like, obviously the dunescape, and someone who understands the ecological space, it feels that way, but when you're standing out there, if you weren't paying attention to that, does it feel like you're that close?
You kind of smell it.
You smell it?
Yeah, the north wind is their predominant wind there, and so you can feel that salty air, and then just as you walk around the course, and yeah, they've got a couple of low areas that are, you know, that, and when it's wet, that couple of streams, that the Narara stream that comes through the wetland and then comes through the side of the golf course, and it's going out to the coast. You know, high tide, big rain in the Tararuas, the golf course gets squeezed and jammed a little bit with wet conditions. But for the most part, when those conditions aren't prevalent, the course plays dry. It's sandy soils. There's a lot of this sort of vegetation around the course, and you know that you're on the coast. You absolutely know you're on the coast. If we can peel back some of this exotic vegetation that's crowding the dune landscape, just let the natural vegetation just come back without even helping it. Maybe we help it along a little bit by putting some plants in, but you help that come back. All the fescues that love it on those high dunes, they come back, and you're sure you're not in Kansas. You know you're not in Kansas. So
Yeah.
so I think there's a real opportunity. Does it really change the golf from 1 to 18 if you're out there trying to score 36 points? Probably not. No, not greatly, but I think that's part of their story, and the work that they're doing is that this isn't about major disruption, and it's not about turning Waikanae into Paraparaumu, and it's not trying to be a championship golf course and all that sort of stuff. It's just trying to be the best version of themselves. And so that just felt like they needed a little bit of guidance to steer them in the right direction, and Chris has been awesome for that. You need a champion within the club that can see the picture, and given that he grew up playing there and could see the golf course gradually evolve, and probably just go down an avenue that it was heading and departing away from its best version of itself. He's managed to help corral it back in, and I've really enjoyed working with him. And now there's some young people around the club that can see that picture. Membership's increased. There's a bit more life around the club. They've invested in the clubhouse, got a new caterer in there, and so hey, look, they're heading in a really exciting direction.
Yeah, all things sound like they're on the up, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's been really fun working with them, and looking forward to it over the next few months of getting that 9th hole sorted out.
Yeah, so you mentioned the 11th hole.
Yeah.
Is that open for play yet, or when's that?
September the 20th.
Okay.
Is when Chris is going to open that with the membership. Growing's gone really well there. Andy Rudder, the superintendent, has overseen that and done a really nice job. We reshaped the rough lands that were beside that 11th fairway, put a little bit of irrigation in there, so for the most part the course is just single row irrigation, pretty simple, but actually we're triple row now on that a couple of areas on that 11th fairway, again just making it whole heap wider away from the fence line, so people come up over this dune, so it's a blind tee shot, and a lot of the times where people would hit it trying to stay away from the fence, they'd end up in the rough. Next time you'd come around, well, you'd aim a little bit further left, maybe you tug it a little bit, next minute you're in the houses. So the whole idea was to try and expand that fairway. We've done that by 20-25 metres on the right hand side, and maybe not be quite as penal on that first cut of rough where they're able to advance it. So consequently the strong par 4 back into the north wind, 380 metres from the back tees, but 180 metres getting over the big dune ridge, and so I think there's just more ballpark now for people to hit their tee shot, find it, advance it, taking down a couple of the willows up around the green, so now that's getting a lot more light and way less debris, and it was one of the best holes on the course before, and hopefully going forward it'll only improve from that position.
Cool. And then so the work on the 9th, that starts October?
Yeah, a little bit of tree removal probably the back end of September. Club are working hard on just getting all their consents lined up at the moment. They should all fall into place so that we can get underway with some tree removal first part of the program back end of September, then get into reshaping some wetlands, reshaping the fairway, getting everything lined up so that we can sow out in early November, and fingers crossed for a good summer, and hopefully by the end of summer and start of autumn, they're able to get back on, and they'll be back on a new 11th hole, get them back on a new 9th hole, and they're trucking in the right direction.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how that all shapes up.
Yeah, same one.